This big, burly man came to the pastor's house, but he really didn't want to see the pastor. He wanted to see the pastor's wife, because we knew that she was sympathetic and did many charitable things. So the man knocked on the door, and she answered and said, "Something terrible's happened. There's this lady that her husband has passed away, and she is sick, and they have 4 children. And if we can't help them, they're going to be turned out on the street because they owe $600 in rent." She went, "Oh, that's terrible. May I ask who you are by any chance?" He took a handkerchief and wiped his tears, and he said, "Yes, I'm their landlord." Yes, what are our motives in helping and serving others? Why do we want to help? There really and truly is the power of God is when we serve others. That's what God has told us. That's the power in it all. The bottom line, God works through you and he works through me. God is showing us how to act and what to do. It's a very simple message, very simple. We are to care for others. We are to wash each other's feet. I know you're sitting there going, another sermon on service. You're trying to make me feel guilty or trying to bribe me into doing something. I'm really not trying to do that. But I want you to look at how we do support the church. You might think, well, I give money, I show up. Last week, I volunteered for VBS. I knew that took a lot of energy. So what am I supposed to do? Well, Jesus gave us that example. I don't know what the lowest and dirtiest job is of today, but I do know what it was in Bible times. And in the biblical times, it was washing feet. When you had someone come over for dinner, you took their coat, and then you also set them down on a bench, and you took their sandals off, and you washed their feet. Even the servants didn't like doing this. It was whoever was at the bottom of the totem pole was the person that had to do this. So why would anyone volunteer to wash feet? But that's exactly what Jesus did. He volunteered to wash feet. On Thursday night, the night that he knew was his last day to be with his disciples, he washed feet. Most of us would be given a playbook or would be saying, hey, this is my ministry. You need to go over this and this. And let's make sure we get it all done. And, I would probably call a staff meeting to make sure the staff was all on the right page and we were all doing it together. But Jesus didn't do that. He didn't call a staff meeting. He showed them. He did the most unexpected thing around, and that was to wash the disciples' feet. That was the game plan. That was what he was supposed to do. In John verses 14 and 15, so if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash another's feet. For I have set you an example that you also should do as I have done for you. Let me ask this question. Is Jesus talking literally about going and washing feet? He might, if someone needed that. But is it more of a metaphor saying that we're supposed to go out and do those things? Maybe we're the ones that are supposed to do those simplest things. Maybe the little jobs, the dirty jobs, the jobs that no one else wants to do. Jesus is telling us that's what we're to do. It's not the big, planned, big, grand things. It's those little bitty things that matter so very much. We are called to serve. Jesus didn't care what other people were thinking about him. He healed and served people even on the Sabbath. He got in trouble all the time for the things he was doing. And maybe that's what we should do. This story I'm going to tell you, I don't know if it's true or not, but it probably is because I got it off the internet. So I think you'll remember it, though, after you leave here. There was this lady that was a doctor, and she was over in Europe on vacation, and they're about to get on the plane. And when she did, she saw this elderly woman fall, and she was, I bet she broke a hip. So she ran over there to see, and she didn't break her hip, it was her arm. So she helped her up, and she said, I'm a doctor, and I can help you. So they put a sling on, and she says, I even have some pain meds here in my medical bag, so I can give that to you so we can get back to the United States, and then we can take care of it. So there they go, and then through the security, you know how you go through all those little things, you have to put the things in the conveyor belt, and they go through. Well, the doctor had a great idea. Why don't we put your arm through those little black things and we can x-ray it and we can see to make sure I'm taking care of you properly. So she says, okay. She said the pain medicine was kind of working by now, so she was really willing to do just about anything. Well, they put it in there and it wasn't a very good picture. So they decided to stop the machine, and she laid down on it and went through the x-ray machine. And on this side, you could see her feet sticking out. On this side, her head was sticking out. But this way, you could see the arm, and they got a really good picture of it. Well, can we be that ingenious? Can we go and just see a need and go and do it? Can we go and just serve people at just the drop of the hat? Now, I have to tell you a story that happened to me this week in the church office. And it was a couple that had been down to our mission. And they were down there and they wanted to be married. Well, Paige wasn't there, so they sent them up to the main building, and I happened to get the call. And I was in my office, and Virginia said, there's someone out here that they want to be married. And I'm thinking, I am not going to marry these people. I don't know them, and I don't have time because I'm trying to write a sermon. So why am I going to help someone when I am busy writing the sermon on how to serve others? So, and this is a true story. This has really happened. So this couple, I thought, well, all right, I can at least put a smile on my face and walk out there and be pleasant. So I did, and I invited them back, and we start visiting and talking, and they start telling me their story. And I took the time to listen. And as we went through more and more of their story, you could feel the presence of God there. You could feel the room being transformed by the Holy Spirit. And they told me how in love they were with each other and how they really had a marriage license. And they pulled it out and showed it to me, and it was all in order. Everything was done. And they said, we have been living with friends because we've lost our jobs, but we both have interviews this week. And we're so excited about that, but we just want to make it right by us being married. And then the woman tells me she's been married before, and she has 3 other children. And I said, are the children living with y'all? And she says, no, my ex-husband works in the military, and it's better for them to be with him. And I thought, wow, that's a special mom. Someone that could give her 3 children somewhere else so they could have the best possible life. And I turned to the young man and I said, how do you feel about her having children? And are you willing to take on that responsibility? And he said, yes. My grandfather, 40 years ago, married my grandmother that had 3 children when they got married. And I saw him love us if we were his own. And that's what I want to do for these children. So we walked out of my office. By then, I'm really got the Spirit moving within me, and I'm like, okay, this is really special. We stop at the desk where Virginia is, and we always have flowers in there, and we pulled flowers I did out of the arrangement and made the bride a bouquet. And we walked down to the chapel, and it was absolutely the most beautiful service I think I've ever officiated. They sat there and cried as they shared their vows with each other. They sat there and pledged love for each other. It was magical, and that is the power of God. God taught me a lesson that day. How was I supposed to stop and give time when sometimes I don't feel like I have time? And I think that could be a lot of us. We run around being very busy. I think that's kind of how we are today. We end up just running from activity to activity. We don't have just it written on a little calendar anymore. You probably all have your phones and everything else telling you where to be and what time to be there. Maybe we need to slow down a little bit and remember the playbook that Jesus left us, and that was to serve one another. I don't think I could finish this sermon without talking about Mother Teresa. I think she's inspired millions and millions of people. But you might not know that Mother Teresa, when she started, she was 17 years old when she felt called to go and be in the nunnery. She went at 17 and they appointed her to be a school teacher. She taught school in Calcutta first for 18 years before she did anything with the poor and the needy. Then it really was on her heart and says, I need to do something. So she didn't even ask the bishop for permission or anybody. She just did it. She went out there and started gathering up the people on the streets that were dying, because that's the poorest city in the world. She gathered them up and then she made a home for them. She made a place for them that they could have. And she cared for the dying and loved them. This American man, and I tell this because it, I think, is a representative of all of us, wanted to go to Calcutta and wanted to help. And he was a doctor, and he had his stethoscope around his neck and his medical bag when he got there. He was ready to go and serve. And that's how we are. You get excited, don't you? And you want to do it. Well, he knocked on the door, and Mother Teresa, they ushered him in, and he saw Mother Teresa. And he told him what he wanted to do. He says, okay, so she wrote on a little piece of paper, folded it up, handed it to him, and said, go give this to Sister Priscilla. So he finds Sister Priscilla, and the first thing they do is they walk into the ward that has men, many men that were dying and suffering. And he goes, well, this is what I need to do. I need to help. Well, they kept walking. They went into the women's ward, and he goes, okay, now we're going to help women. That's even better. We'll hit the women first, then we'll go back and help the men. Well, then they kept going, and they went into the kitchen. And he says, well, I haven't eaten. Maybe they're going to feed me lunch. That's pretty nice of them, aren't it? They kept walking all the way out to the back to where the garbage was. Huge piles of garbage. And it's not the garbage that we have here in the United States. It's human waste. It's rotten food. It's horrible, smelly, icky garbage. And he says, your job today is to take these buckets, fill them up, and then walk 3 blocks down and make a right and dump them in the garbage, and then come back and do that till this is all moved. Okay, how do you tell Mother Teresa no? So he did it, but every step of the way he was mad. He got angrier and angrier as he did this. I have spent so much money coming over here to be a doctor for them, and they have me doing garbage. Anyone could do that. Why are they making me do that? He did it all day long, not with a pleasant smile on his face. And at the end of the day, he said, well, I at least should go and say goodbye to Mother Teresa, since that's all I wanted to do was to go see her all my life. And while he was waiting to see her, he saw something that was handwritten on the wall. And he said he felt like an arrow went through his heart when he read it. And these are the words: we can do no great things, only small things with great love. We can do no great things, only small things with great love. Jesus is teaching us the little things really do matter. He learned it from one of the best. But I think our culture here, sometimes we look at the big grand things and we don't look at the little things. But Jesus was willing to serve. It's not all of our abilities and our gifts, and yes, those are important and we need to use them. But I think the most important thing is for us to have a willing heart. For us to be willing to go and do the things that maybe nobody else will do. That's what we need to do. So where are the dirty feet in the world today? Is it someone at the grocery store you walk by? Is it at your exercise class? Is it the homeless that surround this church every day? Where are those dirty feet? Is it someone sitting right beside you right now that's hurting? That's what we're called to do. We're called to love each other. Because everybody, all of us, are starving for love. All of us want to be taken care of and feel needed and blessed. That's what we're called to do. St. Francis of Assisi said this: preach the gospel every chance you get. Use words only if necessary. So preach it every chance, but use words only if necessary. That's the power of service. You don't need words. You need to just get out there and do it. Further in the chapter, John verses 34 and 35, it says this, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have loved one another. That's the commandment, to love each other, to do that. So as Christians, they're going to know we're Christians by our love. That's what they'll know. There truly is the power in serving. You can serve anytime, any place, anywhere. You can be creative. You can do the big things. You can do the little things. You can do the dirty work. You just have to be willing to do that. So I want this congregation to come back next week and every week after, telling the stories of how you served others. Because every week we say, how will we go and be God's people in the world? We say that. We will go out and be God's people in the world. Go and do that. And go and tell that story. Are you ready to pick up the towel and the basin?